Well, this month we've been having fun celebrating Black history and featuring some of the stories of the unsung heroes in the Carolinas. We do not want to forget them. Tonight, we honor the life and legacy of Harvey Gantt. You may know him as the trailblazer who made history as Charlotte's first Black mayor, among other things. But before he could take office and before he could begin his career as a prominent architect, he had to face another challenge. That's finding a hotel room. Here's WCNC Charlotte's Caitlin Hagwood.
Inside the Harvey B. Gantt Center, it's easy to spot the history of the man behind the name. The first African-American student at Clemson, Charlotte's first Black mayor, and a renowned architect, all facts highlighted on the wall.
I don't think I deserve it.
I sat down with Gantt, who says it's more about the work than the titles.
The testimony to that is that I'm sitting here talking to you, but maybe 6 or 7 generations ago, our forebears were struggling.
Behind the highlights, he says, are stories of faith, including his path to Charlotte.
Clemson was a very good school of architecture, and usually their crop of graduates would get hired just like that. But nobody was coming to see me.
Finding work in the largely segregated South was a challenge.
And then up pops this firm out of North Carolina. We had to check to see where Charlotte really was. To be honest with you.
Even though the job was willing to consider him, the hotels weren't as open. And one by one, Harvey, his wife Lucinda, and their young daughter Sonia were turned away.
I wasn't feeling very good that night. I got a family to feed and house.
Finally, he says, one staffer at a local Howard Johnson motel said yes.
The next day, had a great interview and got the job.
He would go on to co-found Gantt Huberman Architects, creating some of the city's most iconic landmarks, including the Charlotte Transportation Center and Imaginon. Plus, becoming Charlotte's first Black mayor.
People have often said, well, why wouldn't you have had a negative feeling about Charlotte and said, to heck with that job, I'm going somewhere else. I know I can get a job going north, but I was going to stay in the South because I grew up here. We grew up in the church. And we ultimately believe that the person in charge is God himself. And if you believe in something, you ought to go get it.
With many of the highlights in his life well written, his focus now is encouraging the next generation.
The key here is hope, H-O-P-E. Hope and a kind of optimism that no matter where you come from, how Black you are, how poor you are, the beauty of this country is you can do something about it. You can bring some change.
Caitlin Hagwood, WCNC Charlotte.
We'll have more on our Black History Month special tonight at 8:30 on our streaming app, WCNC Plus. That's where a lot of our content is going, and it is for free. Download WCNC Plus on your smart TV.
Concerns are also growing tonight as the IRS faces potential staff cuts right in the middle of tax season.
And reports are surfacing that thousands of probationary workers could be laid off as soon as next week. WCNC Charlotte's Miles Harris spoke with some of these experts as they weigh in for what this could mean for your tax return. So you're not left asking, where's the money?
The timing couldn't be more critical with tax season in full swing. And the thought of these IRS layoffs has both taxpayers and tax professionals worried about delays and even reduced services.
It's a tall task for the IRS, where each year they process more than 100 million tax returns. But this year could be different.
I think it's going to slow the processing of returns.
The IRS is expected to see over 10,000 layoffs as proposed budget cuts could force the agency to reduce its workforce. This could come just as Americans are rushing to meet the April filing deadline. Charlotte tax expert Lem Jones says if the reduction happens, it will impact this tax season.
Your paperwork and your processing with the IRS will get delayed.
How much of a delay are we talking about here?
It could be an extra 2 weeks.
Jones says the quicker you start the tax filing process, the better you are.
The longer you wait, it might be in a couple weeks, it might be 4 weeks, okay? Then 6 weeks. So I encourage people to come in as early as possible.
It's unclear just when or how many layoffs could come from the IRS this tax season. In North Charlotte, Miles Harris, WCNC Charlotte.
WCNC Charlotte is making a difference with your help. When you share your news tips, we go to work.
I sent you that email. 15 minutes later, you're responding to me.
When a Charlotte woman battling cancer lost her health coverage, we demanded answers.
Within hours of WCNC Charlotte asking questions, the agency responsible quickly corrected its mistake.
Let us get to work for you.
Reach out to news tips at WCNC.com. WCNC Charlotte, news that impacts you.
Charlotte Mayor Vi Lyles joins us now from the Government Center in Uptown. Mayor, good to see you again.
It's good to be with you and your audience, Ben.
So fill us in. Where do we stand right now with the transit plan? I know timing is critical at this point. You've got to get approval by state lawmakers if we want to get this 1-cent sales tax on the November ballot. How are we progressing?
Well, we're continuing to define what we're trying to do, and especially so that we can be easily, if we get the opportunity to have this referendum, we want to make sure that people understand what we're trying to accomplish, which is number one, for all of our communities. If you think about how we have not had the opportunity to increase infrastructure, it has been something that we really will begin to think about. So we're talking about congestion and traffic and safety, and trying to make sure that people understand that these are opportunities for us to actually have better management of how we get to work, or how we plan for infrastructure. How do we do much of this? So I believe that, we're still working on the Red Line, the Better Bus program, so that people can come and ride our buses in safety and be, I think it ought to be something like when you see it in Europe, that you have a safe and clean place on a bus. So we're trying to get all of that put together. But more importantly, we've had really great discussions with many of the people in the legislature. And our hope is that we will continue to work with them and see them, let them see how much of a difference this could make for our economy as well. We're talking about roads and we're talking about trains. And that's what we want people to understand.
To that point, you guys have spent years talking about this and working on this. We're talking about billions of dollars. The price tag keeps on going up just because that's the way inflation works right now. But to your point, though, you need the General Assembly's okay. And that has, as you know, been evasive up until this point. Do you, right now, have any real tangible reason to believe your new efforts have won over Republican lawmakers in Raleigh?
Ben, I can't say what the Republicans in Raleigh are going to say and do, but I do believe that we have put forth an effort that shows them the opportunities that it provides. And it's because we've joined in with the entire region. Charlotte is a region now. So when you're talking about what we want to do, it's not just because of what we're going to do inside our city limits, but think about what Cornelius and Davison are doing in terms of their own infrastructure and their needs. So as we continue to grow, and we're going to grow in terms of a region, we have to work together for every part of it. It's not just Charlotte. I think that would probably be difficult. It's always been our difficulty, is if when we go by ourselves, we don't get things done. When we go with the region, I think there's real potential for access for our legislators to understand that this is a region. This is something that we have to do together.
If a referendum doesn't make it to the ballot this year, what happens? Is there a backup plan?
Next year is a backup plan. So if we can't do it this year, but we get the permission, we will put it on the ballot for our voters to decide if this is something that they believe that will have a good economic impact, that we will have better safety, and we will have better roads and buses.
You told me a few years ago,
as well as an extension to the Blue Line. We're going to extend the Blue Line as well.
Gotcha. You told me a few years ago that you felt like affordable housing was the most pressing issue facing Charlotte. The city has made inroads because of that. Do you feel like affordable housing is still the most pressing issue here?
You know what I've learned? I probably shouldn't have said that. That's what I should have learned with you, Ben. I would say that we cannot wait and choose one need over another. We're trying to work on a need that actually addresses all of these opportunities for us. The city is growing. Our growth is so extensive and people are coming. And so we can't choose one thing. I think that in terms of what my career has been about, affordable housing is absolutely one of the closest things that I do, but you cannot ignore the ability to have new jobs, to have people come in, and to be able to express that we can do many things as long as we have everything together. So last month, we had our Housing Service Division working with community leaders on our consolidated plan. A lot of that is from the federal government and what we have to do, but we are committed to serving the public, our residents, so that we can have more than one thing going at a time.
Just getting your reaction, we know Charlotte is filled with a lot of immigrant communities, and we've also seen nationwide these raids happen under the new Trump administration. Your message to some of those communities?
Well, I think our city initiatives have proven their standing in terms of we've been instrumental in fostering a city that where everyone can thrive and contribute. And if we are doing this, we also have to look at complying with federal requirements. So I believe that the city will continue to engage and support the immigrant community through any advances that we can to make it possible. This is a difficult time. We don't have definition yet. And when we get that definition, we will work through how we can prove that these members of our community are actually helping us be a better city.
Just a few quick questions. I know we're running short on time. Do you feel like it's incumbent upon local law enforcement to help ICE?
You know, I think that the Mecklenburg County Sheriff has that opportunity, and he has been very supportive of how he can actually work with the ICE folks. So, and I've had some conversations with other mayors, but it's important that we know as a local government that we don't enforce the immigration laws, that is a federal activity and something that we are all going to have to ponder and make sure that we do it with strength and appropriate opportunities.
The president revoking diversity efforts at the federal level, how does that impact, or does that impact the city of Charlotte? I know it's something you've spoken about in the past and something you're passionate about.
Well, I am passionate about people getting fair and equitable treatment. I am very concerned that we have these opportunities that we have with our corridors to make sure that when we are working through, we're doing stuff to change disparity into opportunity. And that's where I think we are best with DEI efforts, that we are actually correcting things that we can prove were harmed for others.
All right, 2 questions left. You have to make a decision in a few months. Are you going to run for another term?
I will have to make a decision in a few months. That's correct.
The mayor leaving the door open there.
No commitment either way there. When I've asked her in the past, when she's run again, she always keeps the door open until the filing period, which happens over the summer, and she's not going to commit to it either way before then.
Well, she talked a lot about what the city is hoping for with this transit plan. It's something we've been covering for years. Why don't you kind of explain to us what the Republicans have been sort of hoping for as the alternative?
Yeah, so the city has this big, huge, sweeping $20 billion transit plan, I think is the new number, that includes the red line we've talked about, the silver line that would go from uptown to the airport, perhaps farther than that. It includes substantially a bigger bus service. And it comes with this huge price tag. And Raleigh has said for years now they're not on board with it. And we have to get the state's permission to put it on the ballot in front of voters. And they wanted it to be more centered on roads. The city has, in their view, accommodated that request, and they've come up with a formula of 40-40-40, 40% on roads, 40% on rail, and then 20% on buses and other routes. It's not clear to me, based on what the mayor just said to me, that it's going to be enough to appease Republicans, because you have a Republican General Assembly, you have a very Democratic City Council. Republicans, of course, known for being adverse to tax increases, and even Vicky Sawyer, who's sort of the Republican state senator leading the effort on this, on behalf of the greater Charlotte-Mecklenburg region, has said on online posts in the last few days that she's not convinced she'll be able to convince her colleagues in the General Assembly, because they're just inherently against the idea of increased taxes. Even if it's something the people of Charlotte are okay with, Republicans in Raleigh are not yet on board with. So I'll be surprised, but just because of past is prologue, then they're not going to go along with it. But maybe I'll be surprised. The city's got to do something though, because the traffic and the growth here is untenable. And
time is ticking to make a decision. I mean, hundreds of people, isn't it a day, moving to the Charlotte area?
Exactly. So you got to do something about it, and got to find some agreement. I've been shocked, covering this for years now, I've been shocked at the lack of consensus and lack of being on the same page between the people here in Charlotte and the people in Raleigh. It just baffles my mind that we get to a point like this where you have billions of dollars on the line and there's not a clear path that, Phil Berger up in the General Assembly, the Senate leader, and the new House Speaker as well, can't say, all right, Charlotte, you do this, we're going to be on board. We're on WCNC Plus, so we can talk about it. But there was a op-ed in the Observer last week by Andrew Dunn, and he laid out, he's conservative, he laid out what he feels like would be the best thing for Charlotte to do, and then what Raleigh could do in response. But that's not what's happening. And it doesn't seem like there's clear communication between what's going to be an acceptable plan, because if Raleigh doesn't accept it, it's not happening. It's that simple.
It looked like the mayor looked a little frustrated, herself as she discussed it. And she said, if it doesn't happen this year, it'll happen next year. Clearly, we talked about those sort of behind the scene talks that are happening. There's some faith there that they could move the needle here. We'll have to see how it shakes out.
Hopefully, knock on wood, they can finally do something that everybody can agree on.
A health alert for those who use smartphone apps to manage their diabetes. The FDA is sounding the alarm after receiving multiple reports of users missing or not hearing important medical alerts from their phones. So what are some things you need to look out for? Let's verify.
According to the CDC, more than 38 million Americans have diabetes. This warning is for people who use diabetes apps like continuous glucose monitors, insulin pumps, and other diabetes devices. What do you need to know so you don't miss important alerts? Let's verify. Our sources, the Food and Drug Administration and Dr. Carla Robinson. The FDA says this warning applies to wearable devices that track patients' sugar levels or automatically deliver insulin. Many of these devices are programmed through apps on patients' phones. But the FDA warns that certain phone settings, like pausing notifications, may cause users to miss critical alerts. Dr. Robinson also shares this.
I do want us to recognize how useful and helpful it can be, but also to understand that there are a few drawbacks or things that you need to consider as well when you are using these smart apps, to make sure that you're using them safely and to make sure that you're using them to the best of their capabilities as well.
Here's what FDA regulators recommend to make sure glucose monitoring apps are working properly. Turn off automatic updates on your smartphone until you've confirmed the new operating system is compatible with your diabetes app.
So you definitely want to make sure that all of your notifications have been configured to where, above all else, you'll still get them.
After connecting your smartphone to a new accessory like Bluetooth headphones, confirm the app alerts are still being delivered and can be heard clearly.
Another piece of advice, once a month, double check that your smartphone's notification settings have not changed. If you would like something verified, just email me at verify@wcnc.com.
When severe weather impacts the Carolinas, you can help us tell the story.
Our radar helps to keep you weather aware, along with images like these. Here's how to send us a video or picture of conditions impacting your area.
Make sure you're in a safe spot. Take a picture or video, then send it to the Near Me feature on our WCNC News app.
Your image could be part of our weather impact coverage. Download the WCNC News app now.
Yes, a degree, of course, on the minds of many folks, including her family. Anna King has the latest on the efforts to bring her home 25 years after her disappearance.
Yeah, many people told me they hoped to get closure on this case a few months ago, but new developments came to light here at this home, and now they say with the case ongoing, their hearts break for the family.
Still nothing? Yeah, that's amazing.
Tonight, the Cleveland County community pauses to remember the life of 9-year-old Aisha Degree, a little girl who vanished from her home 25 years ago.
I've known some of the family when I was young child, but it's just sad. I mean, I don't know how to describe it other than sad for the family that there's no closure yet.
The investigation ongoing and questions left unanswered. Last September, multiple agencies swarmed several locations in the county, executing search warrants looking for any clue. That's when this green car was removed and people hoped it would bring about explanations. But here we are months later, everyone disappointed. More clarity never came.
So I even rode by the scene and I thought it was gonna be over. And I was rejoicing that it was gonna be over.
I would like to see it all come to the end. You know, family deserves that, and I think a lot of people that's involved put a lot of time into it, and they deserve that too.
And as the investigation continues, this billboard remains. A reminder of a story left unfinished all these years later.
He's still right there in their heart, and her mama's in heart. And that is a sad feeling.
Tonight, officials are reminding people that if you have any information in connection to this case, to contact them at 704-484-4822, and that the reward is up to $45,000. In Cleveland County, Anna King, WCNC Charlotte.
Thank you. Well, tonight, Mecklenburg County is seeking solutions for people re-entering society after serving time.
The Criminal Justice Services Department says it is seeing success with this program that it's trying out. The program supplements folks' income during their first year out of prison.
WCNC Charlotte's Julia Kaufman shows us how it's changing one man's life.
From being in and out of jail his entire life to getting clean and building a life for himself, Philip Chappell says for the first time he feels a purpose thanks to reentry services.
I've had help.
A helping hand is something Chappell says is new for him.
That's all really I've ever needed. I've never had anybody try to help me before.
For the first time in his adult life, Chappell is building a future outside of the prison system.
I've never made it on parole, so it's an accomplishment.
He finished his latest sentence in May and does not plan to go back.
Drugs has always been my problem, and I don't have that problem anymore because I actually have something to look forward to every day instead of getting high.
That newfound hope is thanks to the support he's receiving through Mecklenburg County's reentry services.
They gave me somewhere to live, they gave me clothes, they gave me, the resources that I needed to get a job.
He's also part of a pilot program called Ramp Up, where Criminal Justice Services gives him $600 a month during his first year out of prison.
The first thing I bought was an electric bicycle.
The program's 60 participants are allowed to spend the money on things like transportation, rent, work supplies, and food.
What are those things that they're identifying as their needs, or the things that they need to help them really kind of move forward and get on track for the long term?
CJS Director Sonia Harper says it's one piece of the puzzle for crime prevention.
Some of our lowest recidivism rates across all the services that we provide here at CJS are amongst those that we're able to assist with housing.
The helping hand, making a difference for Chappell in more ways than one.
This program here is saved my life, really.
The pilot program was launched under the county's Office of Equity and Inclusion. The CJS handles participants' monthly stipends to ensure the money is spent properly. In Uptown, Julia Kaufman, WCNC Charlotte.
Well, we got to go back to Brad. Everybody's talking about the wintry mix potential, right? The ice and then the rain, or the rain, then the ice, I should say.
Yeah, a little bit of everything tomorrow. Yeah, we definitely are going to see primarily snow and maybe sleet. The freezing rain threat definitely diminishing in our area, which is actually some good news. But the reason it's diminishing is really the overall moisture is diminishing for the western Carolinas. There's an outside chance of a heavy snow band forming on the northwest side of this, but where that sets up, it's really difficult to forecast right now. It could be just to our east. I really think Thursday morning is going to end up being our biggest issue with that secondary burst and the fact that temperatures will be in the 20s, much colder. So let's go right to the hour-by-hour futurecast. Here's the start of this. So in the morning, 6 a.m., probably the first snowflakes falling in the mountains, temperatures in the 20s. Notice our temperatures hovering near the freezing mark. Some of this will what we call snurga or virga. It's precipitation falling into the dry air, evaporating. So the leading edge of this likely not making it to the surface, but that will cool the atmosphere down. So eventually this does make it to the surface. Probably a pretty good burst of snow in the middle of the day. Look at the rain snow line just to our southeast. More of a mix down in here, and yes, rain to the south. But it's in and out quickly. By about 3 or 4, it's done. So there's just going to be a brief window for accumulating snows, but temperatures above freezing likely melting. But once we get to 7 o'clock, the temperature drops. We're past sunset now. Black ice becomes an issue. And then Thursday morning, 6 a.m., here comes another burst of snow. But this go around, the temperatures are about 5 to 10 degrees colder than they're going to be tomorrow afternoon. So this is a much more icy setup in the morning on the roads, especially with the overnight lows being in the 20s, and we're going to have all night for everything to kind of refreeze. Then really cold for Thursday night into Friday morning. We could see teens and single digits for parts of the mountains and here in the Piedmont. One thing that works in our favor, daylight hours tomorrow, salt and brine. DOT doing a great job. And soil temperatures 2 inches deep or in the 40s and 50s, so the ground's much warmer than it was, let's say, back in January when we had our ½ inch of snow that came through. So the snow meter, it's going to sit at a 4, not because we expect this to be a big event, but it's a legit chance of actual snowfall here in the Charlotte area. Honestly, a lot of closures tomorrow. Probably a little premature. I think Thursday morning is going to be more of an issue. Snow falling through the day, a lull there. This is going to be a big problem, trust me, because this will catch people off guard. It'll likely be colder, and people will think tomorrow nothing happened, and then Thursday morning they'll be shocked when we have icy roads. There's the trace to an inch, 1 to 2 inches north. The highest chance this could go, maybe 2 inches is the high end. Lowest chance is 0, so right in between a trace to an inch. So what is that? A dime is a ½ inch. So just to put this in perspective, don't expect the ground to get covered because that would take 3 inches of snow. That's enough to cover your grass completely. So you're looking more in this trace to an inch, AA battery there, about 1.7 inches tall there. So that's the general trend there. I think sometimes we give these numbers, and to put in perspective, it's good to see what that actually means on the ground. Remember, a lot of this will be melting on contact tomorrow, so you got to measure pretty quickly. So tomorrow during the day into Thursday morning, slick roads, that's our #1 concern. No issues with power outages right now. We're not expecting that kind of ice, and not much ice at all. Your Guy Roofing 7-day forecast, again, watch Thursday morning. To me, that's the greater concern than during the day tomorrow. Friday, we start the warm up, and look at this. We could be 70 a week from today. I'll show you the 10-day forecast because look at that warm up next week. Hello, spring for the last week of February.
WCNC Weather Impact, your trusted source for winter weather and beyond.
We're committed to keeping you safe, informed, and weather aware.
From frost and freezes to snow, the WCNC Weather Impact team tells you the timing and the essentials you need to know. Get the up-to-date forecast on your schedule, always streaming on WCNC Plus.
Your Weather Impact team only on WCNC Charlotte.
Stream now on WCNC Plus.
We've told you about the toll this flu season is taking on North Carolina. Just this week, the state health department confirmed 2 children have died from flu-related complications, as have 171 adults. Among those who lost their lives is Lane Wilkes, a 65-year-old man from Davidson County. Nixon Norman from our news partner in the Triad spoke with his family, who say they're heartbroken by this loss.
Just hours after news spread of Lane Wilkes' death, the community of Welcome rallied around his entire family, particularly his mother, Gaynell. She says she hasn't had a moment to herself since he died, which is something she's grateful for. Her son died Tuesday night at Lexington Hospital. He was taken off life support by his family.
Now Lane is gone. All of my children. I'm 84 years old, and I've outlived all my children.
His niece, Krista Whitman, describes him as rough around the edges with a heart of gold. She says her 2-year-old son, Eli, idolized Wilkes, saying their bond was something special.
He never got to be a papa of his own. He didn't have any grandkids, but he had so many adopted youngins that loved him and loved to see him coming.
Wilkes' mother says she'll never be able to repay all of the people who showed her so much kindness through this loss.
people have been so good to us and so loving. I won't be able to do enough the rest of my life for all these people being so good to us.
These 2 boxes contain the ashes of Wilkes' 2 younger brothers. His mother and niece tell me after his funeral this weekend, he'll eventually take his place right next to them.
Time now to connect the dots when we make the news make sense. Today is President's Day, but do you know the history of the holiday?
The holiday doesn't date back as far as the presidency itself, but it does go back pretty far. Let's connect the dots. President's Day began as George Washington Day and was celebrated as a holiday in the District of Columbia. It was always celebrated on the anniversary of his birth, February 22nd. It was made a federal holiday in 1885. We know it today as President's Day because of the Uniform Monday Holiday Act. In 1971, the act was passed to create more 3-day weekends. It moved several federal holidays from their original date to Mondays. Marketers jumped at the opportunity to play up the 3-day weekend with sales, and President's Day bargains were advertised at stores across the country. No matter what name you call it, it's a day to celebrate all U.S. presidents, past and present. And that is Connecting the Dots.
Question everything and verify with WCNC Charlotte. Taking questions, seeking experts for the answer.